Good. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
Are we sure the sound is on?
Yes. I think it's good this time.
Okay. How did it turn out on the last one? Was the phone sound okay?
It's a little rough. It's a little rough, but I added in 10 different versions of subtitles wherever I could. So sometimes in the edited video, there'll be text on screen if I really thought it was too much. But I also went into the YouTube subtitles and fixed all those up during the reaction as well. And then I went to the full length, and I sat through the entire full length.
Yikes.
An hour and a half. And every time we talked, I went and typed it up. So, it's all there. It's all good.
Making sure the sound is working today.
Yes. There is a green bar that is fluctuating while we are talking. Therefore, the microphone is on.
How did that happen last week? Do we know?
It just didn't work last time for some reason. I don't know. It just...
Okay. Here we go.
Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around, we finished up Planet of the Spiders. What was that one about?
Well, they managed to outwit the Queen of the Spiders, although the Empress, the big spider, she was going to take over everything, but the Doctor warned her that was too much knowledge and it would blow her mind up, and he went into the cave, which was radioactive or something like that. Anyway, what he said came true. She ended up dying, but he also ended up having too much radiation. So when he gets into the TARDIS and heads back to a unit, he stumbles out of the TARDIS and falls over dead. At least, I think that's what happened.
Yes, pretty much. And then Campo showed up after the twist that he is a Time Lord, and he started the Doctor's regeneration.
First time we've heard regeneration.
Yes, specifically. So now we are starting on a new era, the 4th Doctor, the longest of the classic Doctors, and probably the tallest at the same time. Might as well throw that one out there too. So
and the last time we saw him was, oddly enough, in Day of the Doctor, wasn't it? Wasn't he the curator of the museum?
Yes. Yeah.
But we did see a couple of episodes of him when we were doing our tour through Classic Who.
We've seen Genesis of the Daleks, which I believe is this season. And then we saw The Deadly Assassin, which is season 14. So some interesting stuff to sort of get us knowing about the 4th Doctor. But now we're going to see how it all started out. Because those are always interesting. You know, when we got to the first episode of the 2nd Doctor, that was a huge surprise. And then Spearhead from Space for the 3rd Doctor was really good. Yeah. So today we have Robot. Just Robot. Nothing Robot of Death. Nothing, just...
Planet of Robots.
Yeah, it's just Robot. It's 4 episodes long, so we'll be doing it all in one go here. And because it's the first episode of the season, the full length is available for free for this reaction. So if you want to watch our full unedited reaction for some reason, you can do that for free. All you got to do is head down in the description or into the pinned comment. There will be a link over to the Patreon page, but again, it is free. Basically, what you have to do is sync up your copy of this episode of Doctor Who to our footage. And we have to do it this way because I cannot stress this enough. I can't give you a full episode. And 99% of the people watching this understand what I mean, but there's always that 1% that don't understand the legality of that. Anyway, it's as easy as ever to find all these old episodes. You know, we're watching it on Amazon BritBox. You can find it. The entirety of classic Doctor Who is like on Internet Archive, so you can probably go there and find these episodes. But you can sync it up. That way you have us and the episode going at the same time. And you can watch it, hopefully have a good time. And when you're done with that, you can pop right back over here for the discussion. So, yeah, that's pretty much that.
The only other thing was, and I can't remember if I mentioned to you on screen last week or not, but when Pertwee lies down and disappears and Tom Baker reappears, I was somewhat startled by how much they actually looked alike. Yeah. You know, the same kind of structure of the nose, the face. The only thing that looked like it had changed really drastically was just the color of the hair, because Tom Baker has kind of poofy hair too, kind of like Pertwee did.
Yeah, honestly, and the fact that they are, I think they're only like 1 inch difference of height, so they should honestly be a bit similar looking. The difference, I assume, will be in the personality.
Yeah. But the difference between Troughton and Hartnell was, obviously huge, because Troughton was so much younger. And then the difference between Pertwee and Troughton, of course, was the difference in the height and the personality. But that first shot of Pertwee disappearing and Tom Baker appearing, it was like, that's just a younger version of Pertwee, it almost looked like.
Yeah. Well, and also just the fact that, of course, he's still in the same outfit and everything like that. But, yeah, you're right. He definitely looks very similar. I wonder if they were intentionally going for that or not. So, but we'll have to see. So, yeah. The only other thing that I just now remembered, and this is sort of a weird aside, but we also have recently watched something that had Tom Baker in it because, it was a little while ago at this point, but we were watching through Star Wars Rebels, and that had Tom Baker as the voice of the Bendu.
Yes.
So he's still doing stuff to this day, which is pretty cool.
And I vaguely remember the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, or whatever that movie he was in. You need to look that up, and we ought to see if we can look at that, because that was kind of a fun movie.
All right. Anyway. I've already asked if you had anything else.
I got nothing.
Well, then let's just go ahead and jump into Robot. Here we go.
Oh, another new opening.
Yep.
This time with the TARDIS and not the Doctor's body.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Sullivan, emergency. Come to the lab at once, please. What's he talking about?
It's something that happened when we first met.
I tell you, Brigadier, there's nothing to worry about. The Brontosaurus is large and placid.
Is the patient, sir?
And stupid.
Who's that, Mr. Benton? Is the doctor.
You mean he's done it again? He's changed.
Apparently. Saw what happened this time. Lieutenant Sullivan.
Yes, sir.
I'm placing the doctor in your personal charge. He's to have your full attention.
Righto, sir.
Right. Anything else from Mr. Benton?
Hello, sir.
Harry Sullivan, the Doctor. I remember
Yes,
him.
everything seems pretty quiet.
I forgot we were probably gonna get him. Oh, I hope this thing doesn't look stupid.
No, I've always thought that he also looks like a young Harpo Marx.
I'm the doctor.
No, Doctor. I'm the Doctor, and I say that you're not fit.
You may be a doctor, but I'm the doctor. The definite article, you might say.
Look here, Doctor. You're not fit.
Not
and if
fit. As for the physiognomy, well, nothing's perfect. Have to take the rough with the smooth. Mind you, I think the nose is a definite improvement.
I feel I ought to warn you, Doctor, that there's grave danger of myocardial infarction, not to speak of pulmonary embolus. Yes, I should.
Mother, I feel sick by and by. 1, 2, 3, 4.
There's only one
That was
place
very
in the
impressive.
Well, I thought you said Dr. Sullivan.
Doctor, we must get moving.
Is something wrong?
Change.
Do you think I might attract attention?
It's just possible. One moment.
Vikings actually never had horns on their helmet.
You gotta have something a bit more subtle.
No?
A bit more. Alright, third time's the charm. Come on.
Pagliacci.
David Bowie. Alright. Maybe fourth time's the charm. He's the fourth Doctor, you know? There you go.
Much better, Doctor. Now, if you've...
I like how they have to go through so many different ridiculous outfits to land on that being subtle.
Just what you need for the control circuitry of one powerful, compact technological device. A disintegrator gun, for instance?
What do you know about that?
Lost his hat. He had to throw the scarf over first. This is not a practical costume.
I think I've told you I had a scarf like that once.
Well, it doesn't look not stupid.
Well, we haven't seen the rest of it yet, but yeah. Certainly better than some of the other machines that we've seen. Like the Chumblies.
The Quarks.
And the War Machine. Oh, the Quarks. Yeah, I forgot about them.
Yeah.
Those were really silly.
You know, apparently they've brought them back, not on TV, but they brought them back in the audios, I think. There's like a whole unit story where they have to fight the Quarks or something. I could be getting that wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're back at some point. So,
all right, first thing. They have done what especially Troughton didn't do, and Pertwee did by the third or fourth episode. They have established his character right off the bat.
Yeah.
Right? He is part of this story. Remember, Pertwee was in a fog most of that first episode.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the very end of the first episode that Lethbridge Stewart recognized him, if I recall correctly. There's the silliness with didn't he do a chase in a wheelchair or something like that?
Yes, I think he ended up getting shot.
Yeah.
So,
and now we suffer somewhat because it wasn't Troughton's first one, a Dalek story that we watched in animation.
Yes.
All right, so that kind of suffered, but we said that even with the animation, Troughton hardly ever spoke, and that did not help to establish his personality. And then what was his second one? We thought that should have been the first one. They should have switched them.
Yeah, it was the Highlanders.
Yeah, so that would have been much better.
Yeah.
But right off the bat, they seem to have learned that lesson, and Tom Baker is part of this story and immediately shows that he's going to be a very weird doctor, which is kind of good because he's not, the smooth third doctor. He's not the, cosmic hobo or the, the grumpy old professor. He is an entirely new personality. And again, I got to say, I like it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, just the fact that in part one, he's already going around, he's doing the investigating and stuff, but he's also, he's looking at it from a different angle and stuff. He's looking at the daffodil or whatever. And that is really good, and how he's, sticking around with the Brigadier and I guess Harry too. So yeah, definitely already he's been established. Yeah. As the Doctor. Now,
that's one thing. If you say Harry's going to become his companion, at this point, I would have never assumed that.
Yeah.
Right? To me, right now, Harry is just a peripheral character, and not like some of the... I mean, like Rubish. The first time we saw Rubish, we went, wow, what an interesting companion he would make. But right now, we'll have to see what happens with the next 3 episodes, but right now, Harry is so far off in the distance that it wouldn't even have crossed my mind that he's going to become a companion.
Well, it's interesting because, with realizing that last episode is the last one for Yates as well, honestly, you could just see Harry as, well, he's just another part of the unit cast, So we'll have the Doctor, we'll have Sarah Jane, they go off on their adventures. Occasionally they'll come back to unit, which will have the Brigadier, Sergeant Benton, and Harry. But yeah, knowing that it's like, well, wait a minute, Harry... Because I had completely forgotten about him until he showed up in this. I was like, wait a minute, Dr. Sullivan, like, oh, wait, yeah, we're supposed to have another companion at some point. So, but yeah, I'm sort of sitting here like, is he? I mean, I know he's going to become the next companion as well, but he does just seem to be a unit medical officer.
At this point, it would make more sense for Benton, because, Benton would serve, what Ian and Stephen did.
Yeah.
As, the educated muscle, as it were.
Yeah, so... and I also like, in this episode, and I don't know how many episodes this applies to last season, but I like that a lot of times Sarah Jane is going off on her own story, pretty much. Yeah. It happens to be the same story, and they'll, intersect, and she'll go to the doc and be like, I've found all this stuff, there's a robot and stuff. But I like that, honestly... She is just kind of on her own adventure. She is, breaking into these places and stuff.
Could you just go ahead and play this? Because I want to see what the new end... So it's still basically just the kaleidoscope, but looks like molten silver or something.
Yeah.
Okay, I just thought maybe...
Yeah, and it's interesting. I didn't realize how much the intro was different from the intro we had last season. So it's not just the TARDIS, like the way it starts and everything is very different too. Yeah. But yeah, it's all very interesting stuff. And I almost feel like There. I almost feel like we should have this.
I should look at mine.
Yeah. There. It might work better on yours, on your head anyway. There you go. That's kind of like Tom Baker's hat
But yeah.
that he lost immediately. I wonder who, like, it makes sense that, you know, they go through all these ridiculous outfits and stuff to land on this one being the most subtle, but whose idea was it to have that gigantic scarf that he has to haul around?
I think I read somewhere that was his idea. That was Tom Baker. He wanted something that, you know, set him apart.
I mean, yeah, it definitely does, because otherwise he would just have the jacket and stuff, which his is very red, and I think Pertwee may have had like one red jacket, but that was about it. Yeah. But yeah, adding in the hat and the scarf, but he never puts the scarf up to where he can just move about. It's always just sort of around his neck and hanging all the way to the ground. So,
and I'm surprised that he hasn't yet stepped on it.
Yeah, so and it was also impressive just that scene where they're both jump roping as well.
Yeah.
So like I was looking at that, like, that must have been very difficult to do. So I don't know if they had multiple takes or not. So
I think your enemies are homegrown, Brigadier. People with access to technological information and a most unusual weapon. A weapon that walks and thinks. In a word, anthropomorphic.
I believe they call this domestic terrorism.
Stop!
Well, it's tall.
I must obey. I cannot obey.
Terminate!
It's like the end of Terminator 3.
I think you must be the sort of girl who gives motor cars pet names. Deactivate. You see? It's just a lump of metal.
Well, the robot's going to remember that for when it turns on you in the 4th episode. Ah.
You are an enemy of humanity.
The perfect sized hole.
Your own attire. Is it really suitable?
Trousers? Well, surely that's a matter for me to decide.
As things are at the moment, it is. But in a more rationally ordered society.
I would wear what you thought was good for me. See? And think what you thought was good for me, too.
It'll be for your own good.
Well, I see you're having a meeting here.
You know, my biggest question about her outfit is not her pants. It's whatever is on her head right now.
Oh, that's very fashionable in the 70s.
I do hope you'll include us in your article. We've been sadly misrepresented.
Really? Well, we're covering a number of fringe organizations, and I'm sure we'll find a place for you. Somewhere between the Flying Saucer People and the Flat Earthers.
We have to have a complete checkup on the medical records of our staff here.
What an odd coincidence at a time like this.
Director, this is Dr. Sullivan. From the Ministry.
Did his disguise give him longer sideburns? Yay. He still got Bessie.
Not the Who-mobile?
No, because...
Pertwee's.
Yeah, Pertwee took it when he left.
What is it?
Promotion list to WO1.
WO what?
Warrant officer.
Hey.
See, technically speaking, the brig should have a major and a captain under him.
Yeah, one of the things about this, because it's new and we're really studying him, in addition to the coat and the scarf, he's got on just a regular kind of plaid shirt and what looks to be a sweater vest.
Well, yeah.
Never noticed that before.
Oh, good jump. Use the scarf. Or marbles. Thank God you had marbles.
I'm a friend of humanity.
No, you are an enemy. You must be destroyed.
Oh, that didn't work.
Try some of that Venusian Aikido.
Aha! You've been bested by a hat. Oh. All right. Well, not the greatest action scene, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Part of that is on the costume of the robot anyway.
Yeah. The fact that it can't move very quickly.
Yeah. I do like, though, that all of his solutions just didn't work. He threw marbles. That didn't do anything. He tried to trip him with the scarf. He just knocked down the pillar. He tried the hat. The hat fell off. So,
But the robot hit him before the hat fell off. So the robot was luring him in.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, interesting stuff. You know, one thing I noticed, I think it was at the top of this episode, was that this robot is designated as K1. And immediately I'm like, wait, K1? Wait a minute, if you add 8 to that, that gets you 9. Wait a second. But I'm pretty sure K9 doesn't come in for a good few seasons.
Yeah.
So,
And is obviously much smaller.
yeah. But, I mean, far more effective than this guy. So, I don't know. Maybe this is like a story arc throughout some of these seasons. That'd be kind of interesting. Or they just bring up K9. And it's just oh, K9. I guess there were 8 others. So,
Well, I know this may seem obvious to me, but it might not seem obvious to you. But the Latin description of dogs is canis, and anything that is dog-like is considered canine, canine.
well, yeah.
So that just may be a completely different designation for the other robot that has no connection to this.
Yeah, it could be, but it would also just be funnier if they just led up to K9 somehow. Although it's also interesting. This is just another threat that's just entirely Earth-based. Like, there's no aliens involved in it. It's just these terrorists that have made this robot, basically. So, well, not even made the robot. They just stole a robot from some guy who actually made it.
Hijacked it and reprogrammed it.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to think. I'm trying to understand the purpose of, what was it, SRS? Whatever they were called, this strange society or whatever.
Yeah. Again, it's a society of elites who think that the basic normal human being is not smart enough. Again, I don't know if that's a veiled reference to communism, because originally communism, again, was supposed to be all the people work together. There are no bosses, we're all the same, everyone is equal. But as we've mentioned before, then the elites evolve, and some people are more equal than others. So they've just introduced them here, and I'm sure that this will all tie in at some point.
Yeah.
But we haven't really seen where this is going, unless Winters and Jellicoe are part of SRS.
Well, they did say that they're a part of it, but they said they don't, like, they wouldn't think they would be a part of it. So they must be using these people for something.
Yeah.
So, but it's also just interesting that immediately when you see the guy there, it's like, oh yeah, that's just the perfect, like, this is not a friendly guy.
Yeah.
He immediately, like, you don't like this guy. And then the whole thing of, like, oh, we're misrepresented in the media. It's like, well, if you weren't criticizing her pants, maybe that wouldn't happen,
And the font on the SRS flyer, again, is very reminiscent of Nazi Germany. So
yeah, so it just seems like I'm sure there will be a purpose to it. It just seemed like a very strange thing introduced in this one, but we'll have to see.
it had no weapons of its own.
Well, it's not going to hurt humanity. Except there. Bad example.
Mr. Benton, are we members of UNIT?
Well, no, of course not.
Are we under arrest?
No, miss.
Well, then what we do and where we go is none of your business, is it? Come along, Professor.
Wouldn't it be best
So
if you...
just you go and blanco your rifle or something. This way, Professor, come on.
Poor Benton.
Notice everybody's calling him Mr. Benton. Is that because he's a warrant officer now?
I guess.
Yeah, this is
Professor
very
Kenwell,
Nazi-like uniforms.
nice to see you
Look.
again so soon.
Well, in order to make it more subtle, they put the R between the two S's.
In the event of trouble, that country could publish everyone's secrets and so cool things down. Well, naturally enough, the only country that could be trusted with such a role was Great Britain.
Well, naturally. I mean, the rest were all foreigners.
Well, exactly. The destructor codes, they could set off every atomic missile in the world, Mr. Benton.
Yes. And start a nuclear holocaust that would turn this little planet of yours into a radioactive cinder suspended in space.
I think the next question is,
You mean
why?
you could use the information to blackmail the world?
Oh,
Do things our way, or we light the blue touch paper.
I'm afraid so.
okay.
In our grasp, a future in which we, the elite, will rule as is our right.
You know, as crazy as they are, this makes more sense than the time reversal plan.
Whose unrivaled scientific genius has put us in the commanding position we now hold. Professor Kettlewell.
Oops.
The symbol of our movement. The creature whose intelligence and power make him a fitting emblem for our scientific new order.
All this because he made a robot.
Honorary member of the Alpha Centaurian Table Tennis Club. Very tricky opponents, those chaps. 6 arms, and of course 6 bats. It really keeps you on your toes. I'll tell you what, I must pop outside and try something.
Oh,
Oh dear. I'm terribly sorry. You just lie there and get some rest. I'll find help. Above all, don't worry. Everything's going to be all right.
well, at least that scarf proved its worth.
Excuse me, sir. There's a call for you from Dr. Sullivan. Linked information too.
Thank you.
Jeez.
Cell phone.
No.
Sullivan, you still at Think Tank? Over?
Yes, sir, but I may not have much time. Now listen, sir, I've managed to give them the slip, and I think they've forgotten about me.
Come along, then.
Now, was that the sonic screwdriver?
Yeah.
It didn't have the head on it.
I really think we've had enough bangs and flashes for a bit, don't you? Hold on. Turns into a miniature sonic lance, you see.
Oh, there it is.
Propose to do with that.
Interesting work.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming that was supposed to be a tank,
Yeah.
but they just had to get the camera angle. Alrighty. You know, okay, it's not a bad plan that they have. One thing I do question, though, is could the governments of the world not just tell their people, hey, don't launch the missiles?
They could, but it seems to me that the think tank people have
Yeah,
people in the government who would do that anyway.
I suppose it could be that. Because that's always the thing, like in modern stuff, where it's like, oh, they're hacking into the missiles or something to launch them, and it's just like, well, if you turned off your internet, they're not going to hack the missiles. And there you go. But yeah, I guess it must be that. So, and I know that probably sounds like I just looked for something to nitpick about this episode, specifically about their plan, which it's possible, but still, I just wanted to make sure everything was good, because this is very much reminding me of Invasion of the Dinosaurs a little bit. It's I think certainly better than Invasion of the Dinosaurs, but it is just sort of that thing of like, well, we have this thing, but this is the secret plan. They do kind of go together, like, okay, they're using the robots so that they can get all the codes and stuff like that, but and the plan does work of threatening them, and if they don't do it, then they launch all the missiles and take over, basically. Yeah. So it almost sounds like a plan the Master would come up with.
Yeah.
So,
except a little bit better plan, because they do have a way of, again, surviving the nuclear war, they think, by staying in the bunker.
Yeah, so.
Now, what was really kind of odd is that, is it Kettlewell?
Yeah.
That he was in on it from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because they didn't, that wasn't set up, so it should have come as a little bit more of a surprise, in that when he appeared at the SRS meeting, is like, his complete personality should have been, instead of the bumbling old professor like he was before, he should come in and say, now that we have fooled them, we've got all this ready to go. So it was kind of odd. I kind of, when they said, here's our leader, I thought, is it going to be Kettlewell? But when he came in, I expected a completely different kind of personality. But now he's the same. So it's a slight bit of confusion there. But again, it's a minor point.
Right, yeah. Well, because, when they show us, like, oh, here is our leader, I was just thinking, well, he's playing them, because he's, you got Sarah Jane in there, they're waiting until the Brigadier shows up and stuff, he's just playing them, but then when it's like, oh no, he's actually in on this, and he reprogrammed the robot and stuff, it's like, oh, well, okay then, and you're right, he doesn't seem any different, and especially too, like, because the whole thing of like, well, he should be different, because if you're going to be lying to Unit and the Doctor and Sarah Jane, you should probably have some change, because if you're exactly the same way, once this goes through, like, I don't know, I just don't think, like, it would be a good trick. I don't know where I'm going with that, so.
Come.
Don't attempt to stop it! I won't do it! Let it run!
I guess the whole thing with Kettlewell is that he doesn't want to go as far as they do.
No. He was only telling...
I have killed the one who created me!
How's that sound?
That worked. Poor guy. Taking this.
Get away from that keyboard.
You won't shoot, Brigadier.
Maybe he won't, but I will.
Oh, jeez.
Away!
So if you do happen to change your mind, it's very difficult to stop them obeying the original order, but not impossible.
Congratulations. Well done, Doctor. Right, that's over. Now for a little mopping up.
Right, sir.
Just type so fast he canceled it, I guess.
Do not fear, Sarah. You alone will be saved.
Thanks.
But he changed his mind. He wouldn't want you to continue.
Mankind is not worthy to survive. Once it is destroyed, I shall build more machines like myself. Machines do not lie.
So it is Skynet, then.
No.
The robot will try to carry out Kettlewell's plan. Is the computer terminal in the bunker still active?
As far as I know, don't suppose anyone thought...
Can you switch off the electricity supply?
I was about to say,
No,
if you cut the
it's a
power...
special sealed circuit.
Then warn all the major powers.
Well, that didn't work.
Very King Kong.
Yeah. Alright, this got really stupid. I mean, to the Brigadier's credit, why would he think this would happen? It's just King Kong. That's all I'm gonna write down. Why didn't you try that earlier? Ooh.
Sent for the artillery, and the RAF are on their way.
Yay, the RAF. Oh, good drive-by.
By splashing.
All right.
Would you like a chili, baby?
I forgot about those too.
Would you like a jelly, baby?
Trip. What, in that old police box?
Yes, as a matter of fact, in that old police box.
Come along now, Doctor. We're both reasonable men. And we both know that police boxes don't go careering around all over the place.
Do we?
Of course we do. The whole idea's absurd.
Is it?
Why do you think it's here?
Doctor, about that dinner at the palace, Her Majesty... Yes. But I'll tell them you'll be a little late.
Alrighty.
Again, a good story. Unfortunately, the effects didn't live up to what they could have. I swear that somewhere earlier in it I saw a poster for King Kong. I may be wrong. I don't know. Maybe
I mean,
subliminal.
Maybe. I don't know. But, I mean, you know, the suit itself, the robot suit, it's not terrible. Like, it's not the best suit they've ever had, but it works for the story. But making it big, and then, he takes Sarah, because it's the only person who was nice, and puts her on the roof, and they're shooting at him. It's like, okay, come on. You don't need to remake King Kong in this.
Yeah. And throw in Oedipus at the end. That was a little weird.
Yeah, that was strange. Well, and also just the fact that I feel like we didn't... Like, they just sort of dropped his prime directive. I mean, I guess it's that... what was it? It was Kettlewell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting that confused. There's a character in Better Call Saul named Kettleman, so I'm getting those two confused. But yeah, so I guess it's that Kettlewell completely took away his prime directive, I guess.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he still, if it's an enemy of humanity, he will attack it. But they wanted to murder millions of people, and he didn't care about that. So, and then he was going to do it himself, because humanity is evil. They kind of lost it on him in this last episode. So, overall, pretty decent story. But this last episode kind of falls apart a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
but I like the fact that they introduce literally everything that we're going to see over the next 7 seasons. The outfit, the jelly babies, which, by the way, couldn't never figure out why they were called jelly babies here in the United States. And even when I lived in England, never heard them called jelly babies. They were always jelly beans. So, but I mean, just literally every little signature that he has was all there. They're putting it right at the beginning, saying, "Here's what you can expect from Tom Baker as Doctor Who."
Pretty much, yeah. So, with the only exception being, just going out into space now. So yeah, very interesting stuff. To jump into the notes, the first thing I wrote down is the sort of post-regen sort of jumbled head. But honestly, I don't know where that stops and his actual personality begins, because he's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
So, which I like. I like that about him, and it's certainly a contrast from what we've had for 5 years with John Pertwee. So,
and again, strangely enough, he is a little bit more reminiscent of Hartnell, in that Hartnell was also eccentric.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, Troughton was very reserved in many instances, and that was certainly a contrast of Hartnell. This, again, just reminds me a little bit more about, here's the guy who says, here's what I want to do, no matter how weird it sounds, this is what we're going to do, and basically just drags everybody along with him.
Yeah, so that was all interesting. We have our new companion, Harry, who, even, when they, called him again at the think tank or whatever, I was like, I think they've forgotten about me. And I was like, I kind of forgot about you, man. I forgot you were here, and you're supposed to be our new companion,
And he shows up in the very last scene, out of uniform. I mean, after all, he is a doctor, but he comes in with his blue blazer and his white shirt and his ascot, and it's like, go on, step inside. It's like, I mean, it's no different than when they picked up Jamie or some of the others, but it seemed a little abrupt.
Yeah, you could have gone for anybody at unit to be a companion. So they specifically made someone new to be a companion. And then, yeah, I will say I mean, it's one of those things with the classic era is going back to the outfits of the 1960s and the 1970s. I feel like they've gotten a bit more elaborate once you get to the 70s, actually. Because for the most part, there were a lot of... The only exception I can think of is... oh, shoot, what was her name? It was Zoe, wasn't it? Yeah, Zoe, when she had whatever sparkly outfit, sparkly jumpsuit that was. But, like, you know, Victoria was a bit more reserved, and Ben and Polly were just sort of, you know, normal teenagers or whatever, or just young adults. But then, yeah, you get Sarah's outfits, you know, ranging in whatever sock was on her head, and her pants that they didn't like. And then, you know, her, you know, nice, you know, jacket and skirt and her hat that she also had earlier in the episode. And then, yeah, then you get Harry, who... You know, for the most part, he had his, I think it was like a black outfit, black uniform on, I guess signifying that he's more medical. And that was fine. But then, yeah, when you get the blue blazer and the ascot, it's like, oh, okay, let's chill out. You're supposed to be casual right now. Which begs the question, if he's in his casual, you know, clothes right now, that means he's off duty. Why is he here, though? Well, why was he a unit at that particular point? So...
But as far as the pantsuit, yeah, that's something that I try to tell my students today, is that at my high school, it wasn't until, I want to say 67 or 68, that girls were allowed to wear pants to school. We were allowed to wear jeans when I was in high school. Before that, just had to be dress slacks. We were allowed to wear tennis shoes finally. I do remember, though, one of the things about my high school is that your hair could not touch the collar of your shirt. They would send you home, make you get a haircut if you had long hair.
Well, that is a problem for the two of us, isn't it? And this is, but we should point out, we got a haircut today. Like, just before we started recording this, and both of our hairs are basically touching our collars, so, yeah, that would be a problem. So, and you know, that does make me think, I don't know when you first grew a beard.
It wasn't until college.
Yeah, because I was going to say...
Junior year of college.
Yeah, would your high school have allowed that?
Oh, no. No, and in fact, I'm trying to remember, I don't think we were allowed to have sideburns. You know, they had to be pretty much, you know, right at the top of the ear. Because I remember... That is one of the first things I did when I got to college my freshman year, was to grow my sideburns down to the bottom of my ear. Tried a mustache the first year. It grew in very sparsely, didn't like it. But then between freshman and sophomore year, I had the entire summer where I was working, wasn't seeing anybody, so grew it in. And so by the time I went back, I had, you know, the full mustache. But, I, in fact, grew the beard for the first time for a role. I was playing Aegeus in Midsummer Night's Dream, and needed to look older than everybody else, even though I was probably the youngest person in the cast.
Yeah. Well, it's just an interesting thing to think about, and to sort of tie it back to Doctor Who, that is one thing that I would like someday, is a bearded doctor. And I've had some people say that you should leave facial hair to the master, but I think somewhere there should be a doctor with facial hair.
Yeah.
The closest we've gotten would be John Hurt in the 50th anniversary. He had a beard in that. But other than that, I'm pretty sure they've all been clean-shaven.
Yeah.
The only thing, I think when they announced the 14th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, I think the pictures I saw, he did have like a very thin mustache, and I was like, keep that. Tell him to keep that, at least. It's something, you know? Because, yeah, they've pretty much all been clean-cut doctors, so... With, like, I think the rare exception being there was, like, one episode with Matt Smith where it's, like, the doctor has been imprisoned or something for months and, like, his hair grows out and he has a beard. It doesn't look that good on Matt Smith, I will admit. But there should at least be one doctor with facial hair, so... and we've had, in future episodes of Doctor Who, we've had... masters who were clean shaven, so there you go. If the master can be clean shaven, the doctor can have a beard at some point. So but anyway, And then also on outfits, just the Doctor's new outfit is very interesting. And it does sort of remind me of sort of older, Hartnell and Troughton, where it's just some sort of kind of old-fashioned looking one and a jacket, where Pertwee had such a distinct style with his. And so
Carnaby
now...
Street.
Yeah,
really, tailored. It was a kind of a Victorian Edwardian look that had been updated to the late 60s and early 70s. That was very much the fashion then.
Yeah.
Who was it? There was a group called the Kinks, who very much did that. The Beatles and the Stones, I don't remember them ever really doing that sort of thing. Roger Daltrey might have done that with the Who, but the Kinks very specifically had the high collar jackets with the nice ties and again, very Carnaby Street look there. So
yeah, but now this time it's a more, it's a more subdued suit, honestly, but it's sort of, I guess, accentuated by the scarf specifically. Yeah. So, and I'm glad they did actually use it for something when he tripped up that one guy. And it's also interesting too, just adding the hat as well. Yeah. That it's one of those things like, okay, I understand Tom Baker, choosing to have a scarf with him, but I wonder who came up with the hat too. I wonder if maybe that was a way. Maybe that could be a way to differentiate him a bit, because his hair is very similar to Pertwee's. Yeah. So maybe the hat was just sort of to mash his hair down a bit. So
now, again, this is not specifically Sherlock Holmes, but there is that hint of the long, almost a frock coat length with the hat, and just the hey, got to put on the hat because we're going to go sleuthing or whatever. So that's kind of what I got the vibe, that they were trying to do a little bit more of a detective rather than just the eccentric doctor.
Yeah, and I could see that with his telescope and stuff, and him going around to the different things and really looking at things. So I could see that where Pertwee was more of the James Bond sort of doctor. So, alrighty. So we got the robot and the disintegrator gun, which it's interesting how those two. I mean, they're kind of the focus of the episode, but at the same time, they just serve the whole nuclear missile plot. But it's also interesting, just like, okay, so we want the nuclear codes so that we can make our demands on the world, and if they don't surrender, then we'll blow up pretty much everybody, and whoever's left will rule and stuff. Okay, now this is a very complex plan. How are we going to carry out this plan? We've got a robot and a gun. Okay.
And the SRS.
And the SRS, yes.
Like you said, it's add an R, and you've got the secret police or whatever they were, the Schutzstaffel.
Yeah. So it's just sort of an interesting thing, and honestly, I wish there was a bit more time on the SRS. Like they were kind of an interesting group, but at the same time, it's like, okay, this is just a sort of weird way of going about it, And then, they said the whole thing of like, oh, well, they're a part of the SRS, but they don't really strike us as, people who would join that. But they seem to be the leaders, too. And I guess, Kettleman didn't, or Kettlewell didn't strike them as that, but he ended up being the leader, I guess.
Yeah. Well, again, that's interesting, is that he started it, but then the movement got away from him, which is why, theoretically, he left. Yeah. But then came back when he realized that they might be able to accomplish what he had originally thought, but they were, basically lying to him because they were still planning on blowing up the world if the countries didn't accede to their demands.
Yeah.
So, a complicated plot. Could have used a little tighter writing to make that a little bit more apparent to the audience.
Yeah. And, it's also interesting because it's almost... This and, with the evil society in Invasion of the Dinosaurs, these almost feel like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. plots, except you just, replace these guys with, I guess, just Hydra, basically. And it's like, it's an interesting idea, and it's also interesting just that we have these so close together, Invasion of the Dinosaurs and now this. are, all about fixing the world by, killing or undoing so many people.
There was also a weird little echo. Now, about this same time, I'm going to say late 70s, maybe it may have been later in the early 80s, there was a novel called The Boys from Brazil. And the idea behind that was they had literally cloned Hitler and basically were having women impregnated with the cloned material from Hitler.
This sounds like a fun book.
But it's all set in South America because that's where most of the Nazis had escaped to.
Right.
And the idea was that in order to create these Hitlers the way they needed to, that when he was growing up, his father had to die at a specific time, just like Hitler's father had died, and that that they were literally trying to recreate not just the actual physical Hitler, but also the circumstances that led him to become such a great orator and, theoretically to them, their great leader. So there was that, again, that kind of, here's this secret, almost Nazi society trying to say, we have the correct way that the world should go, we are the master race, although they didn't get quite into that. But the idea was, people are, ignorant sheep, and we need to be the ones who are the herders because we know, this is the way, as it were. So again, that's just a kind of a faint undertone. So again, there's a hint of a great story in here. It's a good story, but there was a hint of a really great story underneath. If they had, it makes me wonder if this plot was written before they had chosen Tom Baker. If this plot was written while they were still working, thinking that Pertwee was going to do it, and then by adding him in, that kind of, we had to establish him, so we had to take out some of the other elements. I don't know. But again, overall, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, and it's a similar thing to Invasion of the Dinosaurs, even though I think this does it better of, you kind of have two plot lines, and we keep saying that, between these and in Inferno and stuff, it's you have two plot lines that I understand how you've put them together.
Yeah.
But if you do separate them, or just give more time to them, they can, they can excel and be really, really good. And with this, it's okay, the robot is very interesting. This society is very interesting. If you put them in their own separate thing, they can be very, very interesting episodes. Putting them together, you kind of have to take a little time away from each other to focus on the other.
And I'm wondering also how much of that might be simply somebody saying, hey, you get 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, here's the story, go ahead and write it up, and if it happens to be 5 episodes or 6 episodes, go with that. If it turns out to be 3, didn't we have a 3-parter? Wasn't the Giants...
Planet of Giants.
Planet of Giants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even a 2-parter, like the Edge of Destruction or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Was that Edge of Destruction? Or
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So part of that constraint is you have 4 episodes to do this. You have 2 great storylines, but in order to constrict it to the specific time we have, you have to leave out certain details that need a little bit more fleshing out.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing, too, because, they have... judging off of the last couple seasons, there's starting to be a pattern of 2 episodes that were 4 parts long, and then 3 episodes that were 6 parts long. And I'm pretty sure at least the last 2 seasons were like that, so I would imagine they're sort of doing the same thing here. And so if you're doing that, it's all right, we have 3 stories that can be 6 parts long and 2 stories that can be 4 parts long. But how do you figure out, okay, which story needs the episode length and which doesn't? And, maybe they were even thinking we have this idea, maybe it can work, as a sort of season opener, but you have the introduction of Tom Baker, and maybe they were even thinking, well, it's an introduction story. We don't want to take too long to establish this new, era that we're going through, so make the first episode 4. Because the last one, Spearhead from Space, was also 4. Yeah. Power of the Daleks was 6, but that's beside the point. So maybe they were thinking that, and it's well, that's great, but now you have 3 things you have to deal with, because you have a robot plot, you have this, SRS plot, and you have to introduce a new doctor.
Yeah.
So, and it all still works fairly well, but if you had separated that a bit, it could have been a bit better. Or even just this last episode, take a bit of time away from this robot. Don't make him big. It didn't work. Don't remake King Kong at the end. You don't need to do that. Just spend a bit more time. Like when they were, like, take him away. And I was like, we're only like 2 minutes into the episode, and we've already kind of defeated the villains. Like, what are we going to do now? It's like, we have to have this whole confusing existential crisis with the robot that, he's supposed to not harm humanity, and to that end, he's going to destroy them. So
we must destroy the village in order to save it.
Yeah, I guess.
That's a very 70s thing. That happened in Vietnam.
Yeah, so... Which, I guess is the point of the SRS, is that they're going to, in order to save the world, they'll destroy the people on it. So, which was the point of the invasion of the dinosaurs.
And that's an old line from Charles Schultz's Peanuts strip, where Linus says, I love mankind, it's people I can't stand.
Yeah. There's also, there's something I watched here on the channel called Helsing Ultimate. It's Helsing Ultimate Abridged, specifically, where this is going to be really hard to set up, but there's vampires, there's Nazis, it's in the 90s, it's a whole thing. But basically, the Catholic Church brings together a bunch of crusaders, basically, to stop the Nazis and the vampires and stuff. And when they show up, there's like this whole battle going on, and the Catholics show up, and it's like, the Catholic Church is, we're here to save you. And it's like, it's the Catholic Church. And they say, from yourselves. And it's like, great, it's the Catholic Church. Great. So it kind of reminds me of that a little bit. Yeah. So we're here to save you from yourselves. Anyway. It's always hilarious when we start doing notes and then we just keep talking, and then I look back and suddenly it's like, oh wait, we've kind of covered like everything. So
that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much everything else. There's minor stuff of, Benton being promoted to warrant officer, but now everyone's just calling him Mr. Benton, which I guess maybe that's easier, because I guess you don't just say Officer Benton, because maybe that, doesn't denote warrant officer, but at the same time, you don't just say Warrant Officer Benton instead of Sergeant. Yeah. So
now that's strangely enough, though, the Mr. is more of a naval term, because I know that, for example, I think ensigns are called Mr. Some of the other officers, but there's petty officer, chief warrant officer, and so forth in the American Navy anyway. So yeah, they may be kind of mixing genres here with Navy and Army and RAF and things like that.
Yeah. So I want one time for the RAF to come in and actually do something. Like we always call them, but they never succeed in anything, and it's not the RAF's fault.
Didn't the RAF blow up the Silurians though?
Yeah, they might have done that. Yeah. So. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing, just another tease of the RAF. So, but I guess at the same time, it means the RAF can't be like portrayed like badly or anything, So,
well, again, the Air Force really hasn't had much to do since Vietnam, the Gulf War. I think like that, but I don't know how much the RAF would have done in Korea, and again, I'm not familiar with how much they might have done in Vietnam, but of course the RAF literally saved Britain in the Battle of Britain in World War II.
Yeah,
I know, World War II reference. Sorry, but again, the RAF was part of a joint partnership with the U.S. Air Force, because again, when we lived in England, my dad was with the Strategic Air Command, but he was stationed at RAF Lakenheath. So,
yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it, honestly.
Yeah.
Because everything else is just about, the conflict that the robot had, but then it didn't have. It's like, I've killed my creator, so I will carry out his mission despite the fact that that goes against my programming.
Although he may have been already reprogrammed by Kettlewell.
Yeah.
Because they did say only Kettlewell could have reprogrammed him. That's kind of hard to say, reprogrammed.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's like saying you edited something out. If you edit it, that's a very difficult thing. I was watching a thing, the guy that did the audio novels, or the audio novels for Harry Potter, or just the audiobooks, Stephen Fry, he did those, and I think it must have been like in the first book or something. There's a sentence in the first Harry Potter book that's Harry pocketed it, and he is like, and it's very difficult to say. And J.K. Rowling, she wanted the audiobook to be identical to the actual book for anyone, who would have trouble reading and stuff. But I was like, could we just change this one sentence? And she said no. So I had to say Harry pocketed it. And he was like, even now I still have trouble saying it. And so after that, she made sure that every Harry Potter book contained that sentence. So it would always be a struggle for me.
That's cruel.
Yeah.
I remember the worst line I have ever had to say. I played Petruchio in Taming of the Shrew, and he has a line, I think in the fourth act, where he's basically telling Kate, now we're going to head to your father's house where we will, have a party before we get married. But the actual line from Shakespeare is, I think, we shall forthwith to feast and sport us at thy father's house. Jeez. And there's S's and F's and TH's and W's in there, and it's just every night on stage I just had to literally just go, we shall forthwith to feast and sport us at thy father's house.
Yeah. That sounds like someone trying to make up old speak. Like, do the most old speak sentence you can, and they were just like, all right, put all this in, and it's like, I don't know if this is a coherent sentence, It's
I love doing that stuff, and I don't know why I'm thinking about this. I just recently thought of it. When I was in college, we did a show based on Miguel de Cervantes' The Cave of Salamanca. It's just a standard kind of mistaken identity type comedy, but I played a man who was an older man married to a younger wife, and he had to go on a trip, and the whole thing is whether or not she's going to be unfaithful to him anyway. But my favorite line in that show, as I was leaving, I got to look at the actress playing my wife, looked her right in the face, and the line was, farewell, happy light of my eyes, which henceforth shall see no light until they see you once again. And it's just that just people in the 1600s knew how to write, Today it's like, yo, see ya, babe. It's like, no, come on. Let's use the language. Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of, there was an episode of Friends, I think, where Joey was writing something. I don't remember what it was, but they were like, oh well, you could make this a bit better. Why don't you use the thesaurus? So he used the thesaurus on literally every word in his speech or whatever, and they just looked at it and it's like, this is unreadable. This is not. These aren't actual sentences that work. And it's like, they use the thesaurus. I don't know what to tell you.
Anyway.
So, anywho,
are we done? I think we're done.
Pretty much. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
All right. Then this 2.5 hour recording.
Oh,
yeah.
For 4 episodes. Wow.
4 episodes. I mean, yeah, you add in that extra 20 minutes or so. So this will probably actually be longer than the last episode we did, which was, I think it totaled out at 1 hour 18 overall. Wow. So, but the good news is the microphone has been on the whole time.
Yay.
And I can see that. So, with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around to any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions. There you go. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.